Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 117 of the most
117,
must-see
Ken.
show to ever hit the Bedford TV airwaves, or any airwaves for that matter. North, south, east, west, frontwards, backwards, sideways, any which way you look at it, the Wrestling Connection. I am your host, as always, your connection to the wrestling world, the man with a knack for the vernacular, Mr. Ken Hill, at your service, delivering all the news to you in professional wrestling today. Alongside me, as always, is the incomparable Mr. Greg Dolan.
Who's not in the control room?
Who's off screen right now?
He's over there.
Not anymore.
There he
You
is.
go. Mr. Nick.
How
And
you doing?
who is our kid sidekick?
We have a kid sidekick today. Good. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Prakar.
God.
Picard. He was in our middle school advanced class that
Picard.
ended this Wednesday, and guess what? He's back again with the Wrestling Connection.
Well, Captain Picard, thanks for being on board. All right. So anyway, sadly enough, Zach and Julian cannot be here with us today due to some car issues. But as I always say, even though you only have 1/3 the stronghold, I plan on delivering 3 times the fun. And of course, we can have more fun than with our Extreme Rules 2016 Pay-Per-ReView.
View.
Thank you. Now, of course, we're coming off this Sunday from Extreme Rules. I'm happy to announce that we're on our brand new website, thewrestlingconnection.com. Get those taglines fire up.
Hold on.
One moment, please.
Now on our brand
Only one moment. One moment.
1111101 on our brand new sparkling fresh and shiny new website, thewrestlingconnection.com. You of course can keep up with all of our pay-per-view action and coverage. If you were paying attention, you've already known that after following Extreme Rules 2016, we have a brand new pay-per-view king, a new WK King of PPV champion, Mr. King J himself, Mr. Julian Warren. Julian, congratulations. Of course, he can't be in to accept the championship, but he will be in next week to claim his newly won championship. Congrats to the new 2-time WK King of Pay-Per-View champion. Now, moving on to the actual pay-per-view itself, it's one of the night where WWE goes extreme. Well, as extreme as PG WWE programming can get. But regardless, we kick things off, of course, the kickoff match, which was a no disqualification match, the no DQ match between Dolph Ziggler and Baron Corbin. Now, this feud has been rather underwhelming, to say the least. Corbin really should be more dominating in his feud. He really should have been.
Is this the U.S. title, Ken?
No, well, it's the no DQ match.
Oh, no DQ. Sorry, thank you.
No DQ match. This was a match really that once again Ziggler was fighting with Corbin on an even playing field which I really didn't get, because the main aspect of Corbin's character coming up through the NXT program, the NXT promotion, was that he dominated opponents. He dominated opponents so much that the crowd would literally count the seconds to how long it took Corbin to put an opponent away, and we haven't really seen that same sort of dominance here with the opponents he's faced, particularly Ziggler. Again, this was an evenly played out match. They really didn't involve the no DQ stipulation as much as I would have liked until the end, where you had Corbin with the crushing low blow on Ziggler to pick up the win. And then for the follow-up, we thought that this was going to be the end of it, because this was the rubber match between these two, the third match. Corbin comes out of it 2-1. And yet now you have Ziggler saying, okay, this is not over. You beat me no DQ, but you can't beat me in a straight-up wrestling match. Which, again, why are they dragging this out? This should have been a feud that that put Corbin on the map, that showed how dominant he was, just like he was in NXT. And yet they're having Ziggler, who's not doing anything at the moment. He's not involved in any major storylines. He's not involved with any championships or anything important of that notion. And you're having him on the same. Bottom line, Corbin should be mowing through Ziggler. Well, dude, I'm a Ziggler fan, but Corbin should be mowing through Ziggler right now. There should be this one should have been a no doubter, and yet, okay, I mean, I don't get it. But regardless, the right result, Corbin won. But hopefully he can just dominate Ziggler next week in their traditional wrestling match, and Corbin can move on from this. All right, so now we go to the actual opening match for the pay-per-view, which was the Usos versus the Club in a Tornado tag team match. Now, how the Tornado tag team match works is that this is actually descended from the traditional Texas Tornado matches, where essentially all tag team participants are in the ring at the same time. There's no countouts, there's no disqualifications. So basically, it played out like an Extreme Rules match, more or less. It was a kind of a paint by numbers type brawling match, back and forth a little bit. I mean, plenty of high flying action from the Usos, some brutal tactics from Gallows and Anderson with stiff clotheslines and spine busters. I mean, we saw near the end right here with Gallows trying to use the ring bell on Jimmy Uso. Jimmy would lay him out with a super kick, go for the Superfly Splash, only for Gallows to dodge out the last second. Jimmy went crashing into the ring bell chest first, which would open up Gallows and Anderson to hit their finisher, the Magic Killer, on Jimmy and pick up the win. Now, okay, well, why we go back to the Ziggler Corbin match? Okay, no, move.
Ziggler Corbin.
No, we're in the Tornado tag team.
No, that's right, Tornado. So can you tell me more about the origin of the word tornado?
Okay, well, essentially, it's the Tornado tag team match.
No, just the word tornado.
Just the word tornado.
It's a whirlwind.
Ah.
Like it's like a
For
hurricane?
for our amateur viewers who don't know what tornado is.
So it's like
I think I can trust our audience enough to know what a tornado is.
Is it a weather phenomenon?
It's a tornado. Yes, is a weather phenomenon. It's when you have two conflicting winds meeting at a high enough speed to create a funnel of wind that can be considered very destructive.
Okay, so it's like a science. So it's like a science kind of thing.
It's a scientific term. It's a scientific term, and often tornadoes can be classified.
The meteorology connection.
Yeah, the meteorology connection. And of course, there can be 5 different classifications of tornadoes, ranging from F1, which is relatively harmless.
Yeah, I know that from the documentary with Bill Paxton.
To
That's a good one.
Twister.
Ironically enough, the F5, which can be considered the most destructive tornado, with speeds ranging anywhere from 180 to 200 miles per hour.
So is that like the keys I see at the top of my keyboard?
No, those are completely different.
How so? I noticed that one is a key.
Okay, well, pressing those keys will not cause a tornado to rip through this studio.
Have you tested that?
Yes,
We're
I
gonna
have
try
tested
that
that
right
theory
now.
several times.
So Ken, you seem a little worked up right now. You a little worked up?
You're working me up right now.
All right, hold on.
Yes,
Everyone
you are.
settle
I'd like to
down
get
a
on the
little bit.
review, please.
We're gonna settle down.
We're gonna settle you
Moving
down a
on.
little bit. Okay,
We're
hold
gonna
on.
settle you down. Here we go. Ready? It's a new segment.
Oh, God.
Hello, Kenneth. We're going to slow some things down a bit. Pretend you're floating right above these clouds. Chant with me, Ken. Oh. Oh. I can't hear you, Ken.
Oh.
Oh.
So Ken, can you lead us in 3 deep breaths just to calm yourself down a little bit? It's not
Just
good
calm
for your
yourself
health.
down, Ken.
All right. Do we all feel better
There you
now?
go, Ken. Do you feel better?
Are we good?
I think we're.
Can
You
I
tell
move,
me.
Can I move on with the review, please?
I don't know. You tell me. Do you feel a little better after
I
that?
feel better.
Okay. Do you want to talk more about tornadoes, or do you want to move on?
I want to move on, please.
All right. Time to move on.
Okay, we're moving
To
on.
quote a great man in Brian Dorrington, moving on.
Moving on.
Okay. Now
And we're back.
And we're back, like I said. Okay, so the match did what it needed to. It put Gallows and Anderson on the map, on the pay-per-view map as it is. But honestly, they haven't looked particularly dominant. They haven't looked destructive. I mean, okay, we got them ambushing the Usos a month or so back, but Usos, like, once again, have been playing with these guys, competing with these guys on an even keel. Okay, when we hear about how dominant Gallows and Anderson were in New Japan, 3-time IWGP Tag Team Champions, the most dangerous tag team in the world, and yet, aside from this little
Ever or
hardcore,
just currently?
yeah, aside from this little hardcore match right here, I mean, how have we seen them being outright dominant? How have we seen them asserting themselves atop the tag team division? We haven't. So, and then we have, here's a spoiler. We have the following night with AJ essentially severing ties with Gallows and Anderson, severing ties with the club, making it clear that he doesn't want anything to do with them anymore. He still wants to be their friend. He still wants to be their brother, but Gallows and Anderson weren't having anything of it. Now, I actually touched on this on the Wrestling Connection website. And I'm believing that this is going to lead on to a feud between AJ and Anderson Gallows, where AJ tries to reassert himself, tries to find his path in WWE, only for Anderson and Gallows to be thwarting AJ every step of the way. Gets to the point where AJ lashes back out, maybe finds a tag team partner to take on Anderson and Gallows. And I'm imagining that part I know I'm doing a little fancy booking here. I imagine that partner would likely be the former NXT champion, Finn Balor. Finn's due to make his debut any time now. It would actually make all the sense in the world to have Balor come up, seemingly help AJ against Gallows and Anderson, only for Balor to turn on AJ, align himself with Gallows and Anderson, and boom, there you have the heavily rumored Balor Club making their debut in World Wrestling Entertainment. That's where I picture that going. For right now, though, I kind of felt like there was no drama to the breakup here between AJ and the Bullet Club and the club. There was no anticipation. There was no build-up. It was just AJ comes out, reads him the riot act, and basically they're just done. I mean, Gallows and Anderson didn't lay him out. They didn't assault him. They didn't cost him his match on Raw with Kevin Owens.
Seems very unclimactic.
Anticlimactic, exactly. So I mean, there was a lot of it was a big anticlimax. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll talk about it a little later, but the match with AJ and Kevin Owens was fantastic. It was a great main event, but I mean, just having AJ lose clean to Owens without Anderson or Gallows being in any way involved, kind of begs the point. What was the point of splitting them up if you're not going to have Gallows and Anderson get some sort of revenge on him? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right.
I completely agree, Ken. Very nice.
All right. So we move on to the next match, which was the fatal four-way match for the Intercontinental Championship.
Hold on there, Ken. There you go.
All right. So this was, I think,
that looks like it hurts.
Oh no, this was one of the best matches this was the best match of the night. I mean, first of all, they didn't go with the typical multi-man formula. They didn't have two guys out of the ring, two guys competing in the ring. There was plenty of action, plenty of fluid movement, move to move, finisher to finisher. I mean, it was great. It was fantastic. I mean, you had the big spot, the Tower of Doom spot right here. Cesaro powerbombing Miz and Zayn, who were superplexing Kevin Owens. I mean, you had fantastic chemistry. I mean, the build-up to this match was great, too, because you had the animosity between Zayn and Owens. You had the budding feud, the rivalry between Miz and Cesaro. I mean, all that coming together really made, I think, one of the early candidates for match of the year because I usually call, I like to call it a barn burner of a match. I mean, it was that good. It was that good.
Good. Get another picture for you.
I mean, Miz, and here we have Cesaro once again getting Miz to tap out, and once again Maurice playing a contributing factor to that. Cesaro really stood out here in this match because it took. If you had to look at the entire match, it took 3 finishers to finish off Cesaro. He took a skull crushing finale. He took Owens' pop-up powerbomb, and it finally took Zayn's haluva kick to finally put Cesaro down for the 3 count. It was just all in all a fantastic match. The animosity between Owens and Zayn played up well here, and they added another psychological layer to it, with Owens costing Zayn a surefire win by pulling him out of the ring at the last second. Zayn getting so incensed with Owens that they fight to the entrance ramp, and Miz capitalizing on it all, pinning Cesaro to retain his championship. I thought this was a fantastic way to end it.
I picked Zayn.
I know you picked Zayn, but
No,
I thought it was.
the dice picked Zayn.
I mean, I picked Cesaro, but I mean, I still thought it was a great ending. Cesaro looked strong in the loss because, I mean, Zayn and Owens don't lose anything, and their feud ramps up another notch, and Miz looks like
Kenny, I'm sorry. Who won this one? I was out of the room. I was interested in this match.
The Miz.
Oh, Danielle, the correct answer. My wife is a very beautiful and intelligent woman. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. Oh, looks like someone won't be sleeping on the couch for once.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
You'll finally get to sleep in the bedroom.
Hallelujah.
Should we transition?
Yeah, all right. So, I mean, what I liked about this was that Miz looked like a very effective heel champion. Like I said, he picked his spots. He was very pragmatic. He took advantage of the whole Owens-Zayn animosity to pick up the upset. I thought was an upset win on Cesaro to retain the championship. So again, I mean, I love all the pieces really came together for this match, and I thought it was a fantastic match. All right, so moving on from there, we come to the tag team championships. The New Day defending against the Vaudevillains. Now, this was essentially, this was the New Day at their best with a funny pre-match promo. Since they're in the Garden State, they're going to put a couple of hoes in the Vaudevillains, bury them into the ground. I thought that was pretty funny. Now, the way you saw this play out was it was Xavier and Big E competing for the New Day. Now, what's interesting here is usually when Kofi and Big E represent the New Day, it's more or less guaranteed that they're going to win the match. When it's Xavier and either Kofi or Big E wrestling, that's not always the guarantee right here, because we saw that at WrestleMania where Xavier took the losing pinfall against the League of Nations. Now here again, it was Xavier and Big E against Simon Gotch and Aiden English. Now, English and Gotch put together a really good match. Isolated Xavier, took out Big E, took out Kofi. They had a perfect game plan going into this match. The only thing being, Xavier kicked out of the Whirling Dervish, which no one was expecting. I wasn't expecting it, and Xavier coming back and pulling off what I thought was an upset with him hitting the Shining Wizard on Gotch after a assist from Kofi with a Trouble in Paradise kick. Now, I don't have a problem with New Day retaining. The reason I picked the Vaudevillains was that it seemed like they already had a feud in place with Enzo and Big Cass. I mean, it would make, because they had the unfinished business from Payback. They never had a true match to determine the number one contenders. I thought it would have made all the more sense for the Vaudevillains to pick up the win here, retain against New Day in their rematch, and then feud with Enzo and Cass going into the next pay-per-view or even SummerSlam. I thought that would have made all the more sense to me, but I guess, just WWE sees a lot of value in New Day being the tag team champions and seeing more merchandising opportunities and more marketing opportunities with them as the current tag team champions. I mean, the other thing is, I don't think they should have had Xavier kick out of the Whirling Dervish. I mean, you got a tag team like the Vaudevillains who have, or what, 2 months into their debut in WWE, and you already got someone kicking out of their finisher. I mean, wait a little longer for that to happen. You need to give them time to settle and become a more integral part of the tag team division before you have someone kicking out of their finisher. Otherwise, it just demeans the finisher and it demeans the tag team. So, I mean, that's all. I mean, all in all, I thought it was a fun match, and hopefully the feud will continue and the Vaudevillains will win somewhere down the line. That way, we can get them and Enzo and Cass all together for an all NXT feud.
Moving on.
All right, so we come to the United States Championship match. Rusev challenging Kalisto. From the get-go, Kalisto looked seriously overmatched here because unlike Ryback, Rusev is a more effective blend of power, speed, finesse, and technical skill and savvy. Kalisto was they really played out the whole little guy, big guy dynamic here. Rusev dominating a good chunk of the match, which he should have. I mean, just from the beginning, the feud was not built up well. I mean, you had both guys looking weak. You had Rusev not mowing through Sin Cara and other low carders in pursuit of Kalisto. And Kalisto just up to this point has not looked like an effective underdog champion. Because even Mysterio, when he was World Heavyweight Champion, Rey Mysterio, picked up wins where he needed to. Kalisto has never really done that. He's only gotten wins at pay-per-views. Other than that, he's getting pinned in tag team matches. He's getting pinned in non-title matches. He's not looking at an effective champion. Heck, the Raw before Extreme Rules, he lost to Del Rio clean, albeit with a little distraction from Rusev, but he still lost clean. So neither guy had any real momentum going into this match. I mean, the match itself was fine. Rusev dominated. Kalisto has spots here and there, his hope spots where we thought he was going to make a comeback. But then Rusev slams Kalisto onto the ring apron. I mean, Kalisto with his recent back problems because of Rusev's assault on Raw. I mean, it was academic. Rusev. This image is a little graphic. Rusev just absolutely folding Kalisto in half, and like I said, it was a lost cause at that point for Kalisto. He just tapped out right away. Rusev, new 2-time United States champion, and we would see on SmackDown that this week that Rusev would retain in his rematch against Kalisto. So it seems like that for the better part, that Rusev is moving on from Kalisto having dispatched him for the U.S. title. Now, where this means for Rusev is that you have John Cena coming back next Monday night for Memorial Day.
Ooh.
Now, the question is, are they basically just going to feed Rusev to Cena, or do they have a different plan entirely for Cena rather than the U.S. title? Because we have to face facts. The title has not been the same since Cena lost it to Del Rio last October at Hell in the Cell. It hasn't been the same. It's been on pre-show after pre-show. This was the first pay-per-view in the last 3 months that the U.S. title was actually on the actual show and not the kickoff show, not the pre-show. So it tells you like where they measure the importance of the U.S. title when it comes to guys like Rusev and Del Rio and Ryback and Kalisto. And okay, with John Cena, it was basically in almost every main event match on pay-per-view of 2015. It was almost the focus of every Raw in 2015 when Cena had the U.S. title because he was putting it on the line week after week after week after week. And with Kalisto, you weren't getting that. With Del Rio, you weren't getting that. And I'm not sure if we're going to be getting that with Rusev, considering that, for all we know, Cena could be challenging Rusev for the U.S. title on Raw. We don't know. But again, it's kind of a lose-lose because, I mean, God forbid you have Rusev go over Cena on Cena's return at Memorial Day. But then again, you have Rusev winning the U.S. title that he just won on with Cena coming back, and then wanting Cena to have a big, fantastic return to the ring. So, I mean, cross your fingers on that one, because I mean, really, I mean that could go any way you look at it.
Moving on.
All right, so we come to the women's championship match, the submission match between Natalya and Charlotte. Now, this was a much more smoother encounter than their last couple of matches. Obviously, not having Flair at ringside, I think, helped this a little bit. But there was still some missing bits and pieces here. I just feel like that these two were capable of putting together a much better, more effective technical match like they did a couple years ago at NXT TakeOver. That being said, it was fine for what it was. Natalya looked like she had a couple moments where she was closing in. Then, of course, we had Dana Brooke, the newest female superstar on the roster, coming out in a Ric Flair robe, distracting Natalya long enough for Charlotte to get the drop on her, lock in the figure eight, get the submission win on Natalya, and now it seems like Charlotte can finally move on from Natalya to other opposition, such as Becky Lynch, Paige, or Sasha Banks. Even though we've heard in recent news that the reason Sasha has been off television, and this again, take this with a big grain of salt, is that she was diagnosed with a mild concussion coming out of a May 15th house show. Now, never mind that she was off of TV since WrestleMania. The reason she hasn't been on TV was because of a concussion literally last week. So that makes no sense to me. There's no excuse why Sasha shouldn't already be in the hunt for the women's championship. I think it was just a foul up on WWE's part. I think they may have actually forgotten about the fact that Sasha has a claim to the women's championship. Triple threat match at WrestleMania for the women's championship. Sasha was never pinned. Charlotte can't claim to have beaten her. So you had a perfect, fresh feud right there, and they didn't capitalize on it. So people are still talking about Sasha. She's still in the news. She's still relevant. I just think WWE kind of let that one, slide through their fingers right there. All right. So, anyway, what this means for Natalya, though, is that now they probably have a feud with her and Dana Brooke, which I think will be essential for Dana because she's still a little bit rusty coming up from NXT. She hasn't really translated well to the WWE style, and I feel like having a veteran female performer in Natalya would benefit Dana. All right, so moving on to one of the two main events for Extreme Rules was the Asylum match between Chris Jericho and Dean Ambrose. Now, this one, I feel like, now, if you remember my review from the Ambrose-Lesnar match, was that I felt like there was not, in the street fight with Lesnar and Ambrose, there wasn't enough emphasis on the weapons. You had such a build-up with Ambrose inheriting the chainsaw from Terry Funk, inheriting the barbed wire baseball bat from Mick Foley. You just felt like that these would have been more essential in that match, except it was more or less just 10 to 12 minutes of Ambrose getting suplexed into chairs by Lesnar. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a Lesnar suplex match as much as a Suplex City match, as much as the next guy, but really, it was lacking there. Here, it was the exact opposite problem, where there was too much emphasis placed on the weapons. You had these guys going up to take down weapon after weapon when you already had a bunch of them strewn about the ring. That's why I think WWE overcompensated with this match. You should have just started out with having weapons in the ring rather than strung up on the light post, so to avoid that. I mean, it really dragged on. I think you could have taken 6-7 minutes out of this match, and it would have been just fine. But anyway, we get to the end of the match. You had a mop and a bucket for one of the weapons. Ambrose takes down the bucket, pulls out a bag from the bucket, and spills it out. And here you have Mick Foley's infamous thumbtacks, and that's where you get to look this. I think
we should brace yourselves for this one.
This is one. Yeah. I mean, the following shot, you need to brace yourselves. If you're squeamish, if you don't like blood, if you don't like ultra violence, then the next pick may not be for you.
All right, here it comes.
Here it comes. I mean, Jericho ending up tossed into the thumbtacks. His arms, his back, his elbow. That was one of the worst. I mean, Jericho bleeding. I mean, bleeding out like a stuck pig. I mean, what to quote good old JR, bleeding like a stuck pig. I mean, it was not pretty. And the thing is, though, it should have been a real shocker to the end of the match. I mean, Ambrose picked up the win after a Dirty Deeds DDT on Jericho onto the tacks. Oh yeah. But I mean, okay, enough with the screaming.
It's disgusting, Ken.
I know. We made that point loud and clear, didn't we? All right.
Are you getting wild up again, Ken?
No, I'm just dandy.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, I mean, what should have been a shocking ending to the match, more or less was just. It was more or less just kind of a shock. They were just going for shock value at this point because the crowd was basically dead. They had dragged the match on for so long. They were effectively killing the crowd. I mean, they weren't. This was supposed to be one of the bigger matches of Extreme Rules, and
so
you're kind of
a theoretical buzzkill.
Yeah, pretty much. The crowd was basically just waiting for each of the weapon spots. They were just waiting for the strap, waiting for the nunchucks, waiting for the kendo stick, for the thumbtacks. They were basically just anticipating. These guys were kind of dragging themselves to each and every spot. And this is what I've been talking about for the last couple months. It's not just on Ambrose that this match was not as good as it could have been. It's also Jericho. Jericho's 43 years old. I mean, he's been a great part-time guy for WWE, helping to try and elevate newer talent over the last few years. Now, how effective that's been is up for debate. But as it is, it seemed like Jericho is known his role here. But 2015 and 2016, we've seen Jericho really start to slow down. We've really seen his age start to show here. And I'm getting the feeling that maybe, just maybe, it might be time for Jericho to start considering hanging up the boots. Because, look, I'm a Jericho fan. I love what he's done in the last few years. I loved how he's reinvented himself time and again. But it seems like more and more he's trying to put together matches like he's back in 2005, 2006, rather than trying to improvise and work his way around his limitations like he's done in recent years. Now it just seems like he's dragging himself through match after match. He's what's the word for it? He's telegraphing. He's basically phoning it in.
A little faux thing, yeah.
Yeah, phoning it in, if you will. So once again, it was a good match that could have been great. I think that's the bottom line for the Asylum match. Again, it did what it needed to. Ambrose won the match that he introduced. Ironically enough.
Even better.
Of course, and you want to know the irony of this. The upcoming pay-per-view, the next pay-per-view, Money in the Bank, was a concept introduced on air by Jericho, and Jericho's never won a Money in the Bank match.
Never?
Never.
Oh, well.
Check the history books.
His chances now.
Ever since it was introduced in 2005, Jericho has never won a Money in the Bank match. And, now we have the Money in the Bank match for of course, the eponymous Money in the Bank briefcase. And so far, for the entrants, you have Cesaro, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Chris Jericho, Dean Ambrose, and according to this past this week on SmackDown, Alberto Del Rio. Now, Alberto wouldn't have been my first choice to put in Money in the Bank, but as is, now you have one spot remaining for Money in the Bank, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how they go about determining who's going to get that last spot, and I'm going to talk about that more going into our main event.
Oh, dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. With the Extreme Rules match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, AJ Styles challenging Roman Reigns. Now, their last match at Payback was great, a 4-star affair, and you could really expect a lot more in this. Of course, you could expect the run-ins from the Club and the Usos. You expect this match was going to go to the crowd, that they were going to be brawling all over the place, and it did. You had plenty of fun moments with AJ and Reigns actually fighting out to the pre-show set, where you had AJ jumping off with a phenomenal forearm on Reigns. You had Reigns showing a lot of his power here. You had Reigns at one point catching AJ on a Hurricane Rana attempt, slamming him into the LED apron, into the barricade, then powerbombing him through a table. At another point, backdropping him through an announce table when AJ was going for another phenomenal forearm. And then you had what I thought was one of the best moves I've seen Reigns use, a razor's edge into a sit-out powerbomb. No, not that one.
That one?
No,
this one?
Not that one. Not that one. No, go back. Go back. Go back. Go back. Go back. Go back. There you go, right
That's
there.
the one.
I mean, just
That hurts. With the face too, with the hang loose thing, that looks great.
I mean, just razor's edge into a sit-out powerbomb. Reigns, say what you will about Reigns, he really knows when to step up his moveset when it comes to these big-time matches. I thought he was very impressive. And you want to know the irony of this, was that the crowd was absolutely against Reigns when coming into this match. Slowly, as he was just beating the absolute stuffing out of AJ, the crowd started to turn. They started to cheer for Reigns. It was becoming more 50-50, split down the middle with the audience reactions. But as soon as the Usos hit the ring to fight off Gallows and Anderson, who had come out to help AJ after he got speared on the outside by Reigns, as soon as the Usos came out, boom, they just started booing him again because you see Reigns using the same kind of tactics that Anderson and Gallows were using as part of the club, having the Usos out at ringside. So I mean, it doesn't really hurt Reigns. I mean, it keeps with his whole belief that he's just the guy. He's not a good guy. He's not a bad guy. He's the guy, and he's just got to do what he has to do to retain the championship. So within that realm, it makes sense. Then what I also liked about this match was AJ's reactions. He was calm. At first, he was calm. He was calculated, playing his moves out right. He went from being calm to frustrated to just absolutely fed up with Reigns and the Usos going postal on them with steel chair shot after steel chair shot after shot after shot after shot after shot, just going absolutely crazy on them. Then wanting to, even at one point hitting Reigns with 2 Styles clashes, one under a steel chair, and still neither got the job done. Goes for a phenomenal forearm, and then Reigns catches him out of midair with a devastating spear. That ended the match for Styles. Now, following the match, you had Reigns standing tall, but then out of nowhere, here comes the former champion, Seth Rollins, laying out Reigns with a pedigree, hoisting the championship up high, and it seemed like that this was custom made for Rollins. He had him making a triumphant return, laying out the champion that the crowd doesn't really want. The crowd chanting, "Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Seth." And then the next night, he basically gets what I like to call the 2002 Triple H reaction. Triple H in 2002 had come back from a devastating quadriceps injury. He came back to an uproarious crowd. Same thing with Rollins. And instead of just going with it, instead of turning Rollins face, turning Reigns heel, and just going with that, they instead had Rollins say, okay, you know what I did with all those letters, those fan letters? I burned them. You know what I did with those tweets? I ignore them. Because the audience never cared about me in 2015. All they wanted from me was to lose the championship. All they wanted from me was to see me get my comeuppance because I supposedly abused the power of the authority. So you know what, forget you. The only person I'm worried about is Seth Rollins. I mean, it's in character. It makes sense. But I just didn't like it. I felt like they had a prime opportunity here with Rollins to explore another dynamic of his character, with them just to finally go with it and turn Reigns heel, just to go with the flow. And it seems like Vince and company are just working against the grain here for one reason or another. They're trying to force the audience to accept the fact that Reigns is the face, the new face, and it's not going to change anytime soon. It just seems like that they're building towards Reigns and a returning John Cena, but we're not going to be accepted because, if we hate Reigns that much, then Cena's going to feel like a breath of fresh air, right? Maybe.
Maybe.
And Rollins is just another nemesis, that bad guy nemesis that they're feeding to Reigns to get his championship reign over. It's not going to work. I mean, with John Cena, you had the polarizing reactions. You had the girls and the single moms cheering for him. You had the guys 18 and over booing the bejesus out of him. Cena, you knew where Cena stood. Here with Reigns, he's lashing out at fans for the reactions. He's criticizing fans for saying, okay, well, you know, this is a kid's show. You gotta watch what you're doing and saying, okay, who is Roman Reigns to tell us how we should be reacting or not? And excuse me, this is not a kid's show. I could get more euphemisms of a 3-hour show on Raw than I do on most shows in this day and age, even during the 90s. So Roman should not be talking about Raw as a kids show.
Hello, Kenneth.
Okay, guys, come on. Can we move on, please? Thank you.
That was great.
All right, yeah, thanks. All right, so bottom line, I get where they're going with Reigns and Rollins, but I feel like if they'd just gone the opposite direction, like the audience was hoping for, that this would be a much more receptive feud. As it is, we're finally getting Rollins versus Reigns at Money in the Bank, and that's all well and good. Because that feud's been building for the better part of 2 years. Because both times these two have been about to face off. We had Reigns out with an incarcerated hernia. We had Rollins suffering his injury last year at right before Survivor Series, the DCL and ACL meniscus tear. I mean, so finally these two have faced off, and I think it's a match everyone has been looking forward to. Now, before we sign off on the show for today, a little dirt sheet dilemma for everyone is the surprise announcement by Shane and Stephanie McMahon concerning the state of SmackDown, and in that SmackDown, starting in a couple months, will be airing live on Tuesdays.
So it's right after Raw on Monday, so you get Tuesday.
Monday and Tuesday.
Pretty soon it'll be Wednesday and Thursday and Friday.
Well, yeah, they already got Wednesday with main event. They
event.
got Thursday with Superstars, and that.
The only thing they don't have is Friday.
Yeah. Well, Friday is what they call like the death knell for ratings.
Oh.
Yeah,
makes sense.
So really, it's probably for the best that they not only moved it to Thursdays, now they're moving it to Tuesdays.
Ah.
All right, so they're going to be airing live on Tuesdays. That's not the only shocking news here, is that not only will they be moving SmackDown to Tuesdays live, which is better because you have live airings. You don't have to depend on spoilers anymore for online news sites, and it's much more. It's much better to anticipate the action on these shows rather than just watch a spoiler and say, I don't really have to see this. So instead of being must-miss programming, it's going to be must-see, much like Monday Night Raw, because you don't know what you're going to get. All right, but that's not the only news. The other news is that with the upcoming debut of SmackDown Live on Tuesdays on USA is that they are actually planning a second official brand extension. That's right. Separate superstars, separate storylines, separate brands. Now, I think this is great. I think this is not only great for SmackDown, but this is great for a lot of superstars who haven't been getting the kind of opportunities that we feel like they should be getting. You have separate feuds, you have separate superstars, separate programming. I think this is going to be a great boon for WWE to really.
I agree.
I mean, because you have to think about this. Now you're going to be having. Here's the thing: to fill out a lot these separate rosters, you're going to they're likely going to be bringing in NXT talent that's ready to make their debuts, much like possibly like Balor, like Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, Samoa Joe, Austin Aries. It's the rumor going around is that WWE is going to be aggressively looking at a lot of different American and international promotions for talent that they can have not only in NXT but on Raw and SmackDown. So really, I think this is where the new age is going to start. The new era is going to start coming into motion here, with WWE being more. Now, will this be a permanent thing, or will it just be one of those like one of Vince's flight of fancies where he focuses on it for a few weeks and then just kind of loses focus and just says, screw it all, and just go back to the same old, same old. That remains to be seen. But the way they're talking about, the way they're building it up with SmackDown being live and having a brand extension, a draft, I think could be what the pivot point for WWE being fresh and being revitalized as a wrestling program. All right. So that being said, we have come to the end of episode 117.
Hold on, Ken. We have something else for you.
Oh, we do.
Yes,
we do.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
You might think this is weird, but it's true.
All right.
Great song, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, this isn't really a question. It's more of a statement question.
All right.
3 of your hosts have birthdays within the next 6 days.
Okay.
On Saturday is Julie's birthday.
Right.
On Monday is Greg's birthday.
Right.
And on Wednesday is my birthday. What would you get for a fan who watches wrestling, who kind of watches wrestling, and who doesn't watch wrestling?
Well,
what would you get as a birthday gift? We'll start in order of watches, kind of watches, and doesn't watch.
Well, okay. First of all, who watches?
Julie.
Okay, Julie watches wrestling. I
know you love us. That's why the love connection. Sorry.
Yes, I would actually buy Julie a subscription to, if she doesn't already have it already, I would buy her a subscription to the WWE Network.
Oh, how much is that? A monthly thing? A yearly thing?
It's $9.99 a month.
Not bad, not bad. I know they have an app on like Apple TV or something like that.
Right. So I mean, essentially, she can check out all the programming she wants. She can check out old school ECW, WCW videos, WWE. She can check everything out to her heart's content, and you can even check out all the classic women's matches from the past couple of decades. Now, for someone who watches wrestling kind of part-time,
yes,
would that be you or Greg?
It's kind of both of us.
Okay, it's one of you. Okay. Well, now, let's see. I mean, this is kind of a tough one because I mean, it would help to know what your outside interests are. I mean, what do you guys like to do? What are your hobbies? For once, I'm a little stumped here because honestly, for Greg, obviously he's a new father, so maybe get some gifts for Travis. Maybe
should make Travis a wrestler. We'll dress him up as Roman Reigns.
I wouldn't go that far, but I mean.
Well, we could just put him in like a Jericho thing. Just put him in jeans and the black shirt.
Yeah, I mean, maybe get him some new baby clothes for Travis. I mean, just something. I mean, I think that he could share with the family.
I agree. I like that a lot, Ken.
All right. So, I mean, as far as you go, I mean, what do you like? I mean,
I like lots of things.
Okay, well, name something.
I like being outside. I like the beach and the ocean. I like to cook. That's a big one for me. I really enjoy just being outside and being in fresh air. That's one of my main things.
All right. So,
unfortunately, I'm inside right now, but.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a tough one. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe we could go. I mean, maybe we could go for a hike up to Blue Hills. I mean, let's. I mean, let's see. I mean, we could go to like a nice like a teppanyaki restaurant. Have them cook up a nice meal for you. I could get you like a really fancy cookbook.
So like Roman Reigns, like fried rice or something.
Oh, please. Yeah, cookbook.
The Jericho spicy meatballs.
Oh, God.
All right, and then
well,
for someone
considering he's from Canada, those would probably be moose balls.
Yeah, I know. All right, and then the last one for someone who doesn't watch wrestling at all. Would you try and get them into wrestling? Like, would you kind of bribe them with a little, hey, try this? Or?
Well, you kind of remember, if you remember from the first time you guys dropped the love connection on me, this was actually a question you brought up, that for a surprise, for a date, to take your significant other to a wrestling event and see if they like it or not. If they get into it, then good. You have something you can comment, something you can do for a date night every once in a while. But for someone who's not into wrestling, I mean, if it doesn't work, then I mean, again, you need to see what their other interests are. You need to kind of think outside, well, not the box, but the squared circle, if you will. You just have to understand that they're going to have different interests than you. They're not if they respect the fact that you like wrestling, they just don't want to get into it themselves. So as far as someone who doesn't like wrestling, I mean, again, I would just try to figure out what their other interests are. And then just go from there. I mean, okay. I mean, give me an example of someone who wouldn't be into wrestling. Something else they might like. I mean, just off the top of your head, just give me any sort of hobby that doesn't really have anything to do with sports or wrestling.
Okay. They like to write and draw.
They like to write and draw. I mean,
very artistic.
Artistic. Maybe I'd get them tickets to like a metropolitan art museum.
Ooh.
I mean,
very festive.
Exactly. Or like an open air art festival. I mean, just like again, you have to, like I said, you have to think outside the ring for this. I mean, you try to be creative, but don't try to go over the top. Is what I'm saying. Be creative, but don't go over the top.
All right, Ken. I think that's all the time we have for the Love Connection today. So let's
wrap
her up.
Love Connection and episode 117.
And episode 117.
Of the Wrestling Connection. If you'd like to check out all of our past and present episodes, make sure to check out our YouTube channel, The Wrestling Connection. And of course, we also have our brand new, up-to-date website, The Wrestling Connection.
Very, very cool. Very nice job, Ken.
Thank you very much. Designed it all myself, courtesy of Weebly. TheWrestlingConnection.com. With all of our bios, past and present videos, behind the scenes pictures, championship bios, special behind the scenes stuff, lots of extra material. Check it out while you can. I really appreciate it. So next week we start looking at the road to Money in the Bank. We have one remaining spot, like I said, for the Money in the Bank match. We know that it's going to be Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns for the WWE World Championship. So we'll see what else WWE has in store for next week. In the meantime, for Nick and Greg and Captain Picard, I am your host, Ken Hill. Reminding you as always to be connected, get connected,
Stay
connected. Yeah, have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Heard it too many times to ignore it. It's some things that I'm supposed to be.
Someday we'll find it. The wrestling connection. The lovers, the dreamers, and me. La da da dee da dee. La da 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 dee da doo.
Oh yeah!